My grandmother was fond of saying that I wasn't the first writer in the family, and I shouldn't get a big head about it. My great uncle published a book in the 60s. It was the inspiration for this piece. It's called Arthur's Study. Roman upheaval, topic of a book by Dr. Kaplan. Can Catiline be cleared? The reputation of the Roman co-conspirator assigned to infamy in the polemics of Cicero has been reclaimed. The Fall River Herald News, September 25th, 1968. Walt Kaplan's brother, Arthur, was a quiet boy who grew up into an accomplished man. When they were boys, it was always, Arthur's studying. There's got to be at least one yeshiva booker in every family, and the yeshiva booker's got to have quiet. You go outside and play while your brother's studying. And so Walt went to work in their father's furniture store, and Arthur went to college. First to Brown, and then to Columbia for his PhD in classics. Arthur's face was pale. He'd always looked as though he'd been dusted with flour. This added to his gravitas. And Walt, like the rest of the family, was proud that Arthur looked the part of our scholar ghost. Arthur Kaplan's first and only book appeared in 1968. For a man who lived such a quiet life, he married a wan, squirrely-looking girl, and they lived in Brooklyn without children. The book turned out to be a bit scandalous. The title was innocuous enough: Catiline and His Role in the Roman Revolution. Yet the book was a surprisingly spirited and graphic defense of Catiline, a man who apparently made a lot of trouble 2,000 years ago. And now here he was, wreaking havoc once again via the pen of meek little Arthur Kaplan, a man who came out of the womb speaking Latin. They called him a villainous fiend, murderer, corrupter of youth and donkeys, traitor, drunken debauchee, temple robber. Plutarch himself topped it off with the accusation that Catiline deflowered his own daughter. And all this in the prologue. What? The family gasped. What? Don't get us wrong. An author is an author is an author. And our Arthur is an author. His name's right there on the cover. But incest, donkeys? Maybe you should have been out on the street playing stickball with Walt. Maybe nobody will read it. Ah, yes, of course, that's the ticket. Nobody will read it. But we'll put it on the shelf. Yes, absolutely, we'll put it on the shelf. Upon Arthur's triumphant return to Fall River, he gave a short speech at his alma mater, BMC Durfee High School, noting that the destruction of Catiline's reputation was the result of the same sort of mudslinging that characterized the politics of today. And if you think the Romans were violent, maybe we ought to look at ourselves in this year 1968. It's often not the great man who is ultimately heard, but his detractors. And elections, they bring out the poet in politicians, don't they? Take, for instance, the consular elections of 64 BC, when Cicero called Piso, father of Caesar's last wife, Calpurnia, among other things, a brute, plague, butcher, link boy of Catiline, lump of carrion, drunken fool, inhumane lunatic, feces, Epicurean pig, assassin, temple robber, plunderer of Macedonia, infuriated pirate, egged on by desire for booty and rapine. And yet it must be said that compared to Piso, Catiline was a red pepper. This was followed by an expectant pause. Arthur leaned over the podium, gaped at his audience, and waited. Someone whispered loudly, it may have been Aunt Hattie, does he have to keep making these awful lists? And then Arthur, he said it again. He said, compared to Piso, Catiline was a red pepper. Arthur's pasty face, his eyes imploring. Sarah, his wife, nudged Walt. What's he talking about? Shh. And Walt dug his mouth in his wife's ear. He's talking about Claude Pepper, the pinko senator. He's trying to make a joke. And so it was Walt, his brother, out of mercy, who finally rescued Arthur by laughing. Everybody else followed his lead. Ah, red pepper. Catalan was a red pepper. Ha, ha, ha. Are you finished with this speech, Arthur? And one night, about a month or so later, it was Walt who, after dinner, did take the book off the shelf in the living room where Sarah had safely stored it for posterity, and he carried it upstairs to his study in the flat of his hand like a waiter carrying a tray. And then he locked the door and went to Rome. And night was thinning into morning by the time Catalan uttered the last of his famous last words. But if fortune frowns on your bravery, take care to not die unavenged. Do not be captured and slaughtered like cattle, but fighting like heroes, leave the enemy a bloody and tearful victory. Walt hears trumpets. If fortune frowns, viva Catalan, viva the Roman traitor. And furthermore, as my brother so cogently argues, no self-respecting republic should be without a little healthy rebellion. Keeps everybody honest, and with a blowhard like Cicero around, somebody has to draw a line across the forum with his sword. Walt slides off his chair and onto the carpet of his study. He stares at the ceiling. His study has always been a box that envelops him, protects him. There are days he mourns this room and wonders how it will go on without him when he's gone. And right now, the distance between himself and the floor and the ceiling is intolerable. I'm lying in a grave on my own carpet. To think, there are people who believe that when it's all over, the angels sing and we float up higher and higher. They don't doubt. They believe. Before I put on my other sock, I doubted the entire day. And my brother writes, a great revolutionist was found far in advance of his slain foeman, still breathing lightly and showing on Catalan's face the indubitable spirit that had once animated him when alive. The Roman army carried his severed head back to the eternal city in a basket. Once, outside this very room, a jay rammed into the window. Then he backed up and flew into it again. Walt watched until the bird finally dropped into the dirt. And they say only man is valiant enough to die for lost causes. In the blue-gray light, Walt Kaplan thinks, my people, they sleep. My own brother, a man who has faith enough, believes in enough to devote his life to raising an ancient debaucher from the dead, sleeps in leafy Brooklyn beside his squirrely wife. And my Sarah and my daughter sleep across the hall. In sleep, they breathe their infinite breaths. The dawn sun flies upward, and I sink into the carpet. I dream of home when I'm home, of love when I love. How can I shout farewell from the mountaintop if I never even leave my house? How can I rise to protect my people if I don't even own a sword?